Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me tonight, as he so often does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, I know you had your trip to Syracuse booked, and I know you had a situation with your daughter. You weren't able to make it up there and whatnot.
Yeah.
I heard it's a blizzard up there right now, so you dodged the bullet on that one, man.
Yeah, I texted Greg Barnes, told him why I couldn't get up there. Got an autistic daughter, and every once in a while things come up and needed my attention here in Raleigh, so I stayed back. And I guess the good thing is for me is I'm not in the snow trying to find an Uber right now.
Exactly.
Greg said it was 20 to 30 mile an hour winds and snowing. And of course, every time I go up to Syracuse, the weather just sucks. Mm-hmm. It's so bad up there. So the positive is that I missed out on that, but I always like to be there. But this has been the weird pandemic year. I've missed a few of the road games because of limited credentials or no credentials. And then an ice storm going to UVA and now this. So it is what it is. Still able to see the game, still able to do our content. Not as much like in the way I would being there, but yeah, I think Carolina's performance tonight would have looked the same in person as it did on TV. And with that, I feed it back to you.
Yeah, I heard the Wi-Fi sucks in the Carrier Dome too, but that's another story for another day.
Look, I think games in there when fans are there is cool.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But we saw Greg on the Zoom having some issues with the Wi-Fi, and I can totally relate to that. I've had a lot of that in the past there.
Yeah,
football
exactly.
And basketball.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You forgot you got both sports in there. Yeah. But AJ, like you kind of mentioned, Carolina losing night 72-70 to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. Carolina dropping to 15-9 overall, 9-6 in the ACC, and just 3-7 on the road this season. I'm going to run through some stat lines real quick, and then we'll dive into it. Mondo Baycott led the way, 18 points, 15 boards in 25 minutes, saying it's his fifth double-double of the season so far. Garrison Brooks had 11 points. And Caleb Love had 10 points and 8 rebounds. But, AJ, let's kind of dive into it like we always do. I think turnovers was another big issue for Carolina tonight. I feel like we've talked about turnovers on our three things and in our other podcasts so many times this season. It's definitely been a consistent theme for the Tar Heels that they just haven't been able to figure out as of yet. 20 turnovers compared to Syracuse's 12. Kind of tells you a lot. And, like I said, it's just something we've talked about a ton this season and something that just really continues to hurt Carolina on seems like a game-by-game basis. I know we've had a few games this year where they've taken care of the ball pretty well, but, by and large, it's been a turnover fest for Carolina this year.
Nearly every facet of this team, element of this team has been inconsistent. And I would say the turnover situation lately, if you go back to the last 6 games, kind of is a microcosm of that. In the 3 games, you had Virginia, Northeastern, and Louisville. I'm trying to rack my brain here.
Yeah,
total Carolina committed 29 turnovers that led to 27 points for their opponents. In the 3 games since, 60 turnovers leading to 72 points for their opponents. That is as night and day, or however you want to put it, as it possibly can be. And I think that this was their worst. They've actually had more turnovers in a couple different games this year. They had 24 against Stanford and won that game. Stanford, I think, had 19 points off of turnovers. They had, Florida State had 22 points off turnovers in Tallahassee. The other day, Carolina had 21 turnovers for 25 points. But this was worse because it was 28 points. This was a game they should have won. And what happened is on a night where, and we're going to get into rebounding in a second, a night where they completely dominated the glass, their issues with turnovers leading to points totally offset that. Syracuse had 15 steals. Syracuse had 20 fast break points. I mean, you could point to a lot of things that Carolina did or didn't do, which is why they lost. They didn't shut down Buddy Boeheim in the second half tonight like they did in the first game at Chapel Hill. They didn't shoot as well from the perimeter as you would like them to. They didn't run the offense against that zone the way they usually run the offense against the zone. They didn't. The big stuff wasn't really happening. So there are a lot of things they didn't do right tonight. But if you trim those turnovers to a palatable 12 for maybe 14 points off turnovers, which is not a great number, but I think that when you own the glass the way this team does so often, you could probably live with it. That would have been the difference in the outcome tonight.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. I asked Roy after the game too. And a lot of people are banging on Caleb Love and banging on RJ Davis because of turnover issues. But As David Sisk and I talked about a couple weeks ago in one of our videos, and David's a coach. He's coached in college. He's done AAU. He's been around this game for a long time as a coach. He sees the game as a coach. And he said, look, it's not just the guys with the ball in their hand. It's not passing issues, dribbling issues, you're driving into a crowded lane issues. It's everybody. It's a collective thing. It's poor movement. It's poor spacing. It's not getting open properly, forcing the guy with the ball maybe to make a bad decision. And I asked Roy about that after the game night on the Zoom that we did. And he said, yeah, it's a combination of all that stuff. And that was clearly on display tonight. I don't even know the individual numbers of the turnovers. I didn't bother looking at it because to me, so many of their turnovers were a collective issue. It wasn't just one. Whoever was assigned credit, for lack of a better word, for the turnover, there should have been a few other names associated with it because it was a lot of guys that were involved. And part of it is the fact that they didn't really attack the zone the way they've had so much success attacking the zone. If you saw on our 5 keys, there I go promoting that again, Jacob. If you saw on our 5 keys, I outlined in 3 of them why Carolina's had so much success against that zone. And a big part of it is their post-to-post passing. And it wasn't there. Carolina has averaged 70% of their baskets have had assists against Syracuse going back to the start of 2016 season. They were at 61% tonight, but it was a lot different. It wasn't the post-to-post stuff. The shooting percentage inside the arc was, 11 points lower tonight than it had been in those other games going back to 2016. And they never shoot threes well against Syracuse for the most part. And that didn't bail them out tonight. So there was bad offense, and the turnovers were a byproduct of a lot of things they just didn't do well. It wasn't just bad passing and ball handling. And they lost the game, I think, first and foremost because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with what you're saying, AJ. And I actually have the stats in front of me. It was, let's see, RJ Davis, 4 turnovers, Garrison Brooks, 4 turnovers, Caleb Love, 4 turnovers, Caleb Love, 3 turnovers, Dayron Sharp, 3 turnovers, Armando Bacot, 3 turnovers. So, like you said, it was a collective effort. It wasn't just one guy who was throwing the ball out.
And it's not just the ball. It's not ball security
sure.
stuff. It's a lot of other stuff as well. And when they see the film, there's going to be a lot of, the guy with the ball made a mistake, but so did that guy and so did that guy. And that helps lead to the turnovers.
That was team effort when it comes to turnovers for Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
AJ, you know what I'm saying. Next thing I want to talk about, though, AJ, you already mentioned it a little bit, rebounding. You look at Carolina's rebounding edge tonight, 52-33 over Syracuse, and that kind of illustrates for me that, okay, Carolina, grabbed, 19 more rebounds than the Orange, still lost by 2. So like you kind of mentioned a few minutes ago, you just a few less turnovers, maybe a few more points off of those rebounds. We're having a completely different conversation right now, but that's why you play the game. It's a game of fine margins sometimes. And, just looking at that rebounding edge, though, it's just surprising when you look at the final outcome, really, because when you see that with the Carolina team, you're just so accustomed to them winning when they dominate the glass like that.
Well, the most important statistic to Roy Williams is rebounding.
Yeah.
And if you look at his best teams, they're often number 1 in the nation in rebounding margin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's not rebounding numbers that matter the most. It's rebounding margin that matters the most. And this team, number 1, Coastal Carolina, I think, passed them by this weekend, but they have been number 1 in the country in rebounding margin most of the season. And certainly among Power 5 teams, the only other club in the nation that's close to them might be someone like Illinois. It's got a terrific front line. But when you look at their 9 losses now, they actually have a plus 9.7 rebounding margin edge in those 9 losses. And they actually were -1 at Florida State, and they were +1 against Marquette. So think about the other 7. They were plus 18 against Texas. They were plus 11 at Clemson. They were plus 12 at Georgia Tech. They were plus 20 tonight. So they don't get enough out of their rebounding dominance. It's on both ends of the floor. On the defensive end, it's because they don't transition well.
Yeah, they don't run the floor
turn
great.
rebounds, get the ball out in transition, and get easy buckets as a result. On the offensive end, they're not getting enough production from their putbacks. Yeah. They had 25 second chance points tonight, which is an awesome number, but they had 26 offensive rebounds. It's just under a point per offensive rebound, and you want to be, at the very least, you want to be at a point, but you really want to be above that. And we've talked about this a couple of times during the course of the year where they've gone through stretches where they might grab 16 offensive rebounds in a game and they get 13 second chance points.
Yeah.
They're just not converting a high enough rate of their offensive rebounds to make it the kind of weapon it needs to be. It is a weapon, and it's part of their offense, but it should be better. They should have a higher efficiency rate. And they were 11 for 21 on layups tonight. A lot of those were the putbacks. They missed a lot of putbacks tonight.
Yeah, easy putbacks.
So when you're giving away points with 20 turnovers leading to 28 points off of turnovers, you've got to find a way to make up for that. And if you're not even getting a point per offensive rebound, and almost all of they don't get offensive rebounds and swing it out to the wing for a three. They're usually shooting the ball right back there in the lane. Sometimes they kick it back out. Sometimes it's a jumper from 4 or 5 feet or whatever. A lot of that stuff is near or at the rim, and they're missing too much of that stuff. They need to clean that up to close out this season, and I guarantee you it will be a major point of emphasis in the offseason.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You're completely right on that, AJ. It's like I said, it's kind of crazy to think about some of the edges Carolina's had on the glass this season, like you mentioned against Texas. Still lose a game. It's just something you're just not accustomed to seeing with a lot of Carolina teams in recent history and in the past especially. But AJ, let's kind of move on to the last thing I want to talk about. What does this mean? We talked about it after I guess it was after the Florida State game. We talked about kind of the weird week that Carolina had last week, beating Louisville a couple weekends ago. Then they lose a really poor performance against Marquette. Then they bounce back and find a way after a big second half comeback to beat the ACC's best team, a top 15 team in the country in Florida State. And then they go up to Syracuse, tonight and look good in the beginning, did some really nice things, kind of jumped out to that early lead. And then, Syracuse, Buddy Boeheim go on this huge run. Carolina goes on a kind of a cold spell to end the first half, end up being behind at the break, and then never really could just make things happen until late in the second half. And at that point, it was just a little bit too late for the Tar Heels. So you got Duke coming up, ACC tournament coming up as well. I mean, it just kind of feels like it's one step forward and 2 steps back with this team right now.
Or just this.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, in one of our post-game videos, I said, the way this is trending is as if they're just going to wobble around the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Just wobble around.
And that's kind of, and somebody asked me, I did a podcast, ACC Nation Sunday night, and they asked me about that. And I said, I kind of think what you see is what this team is.
I agree.
There's plenty there's nothing that indicates that they're suddenly going to play well and then well and then well and then well, because they haven't done it yet. Even in some of the games they won when they were on that little stretch in January, they didn't play very well, but they found ways to win. And that was part of their growing process. That's kind of where they were then. They're clearly a much better team now than they were at that time, because when they play well, there's a high end. I mean, they've really banged their head on the ceiling a couple of times here. You go back to Pitt, they played really well at Pitt. That was before Pitt became a dysfunctional team situation. And then they follow that up with a horrible performance at Clemson. They follow that up with an excellent offensive outing at Duke. They follow that up with 48 points at Virginia. So this started back in January. Yeah, and I think a big part of it is the youth. A lot of people need to really understand that when you're the 325th most experienced team in the country, that comes with a lot of problems. And one of the number one problems all coaches of very young teams have is consistency. And that's exactly what Roy's dealing with right now. They will be better off down the road for having gone through this. But when you're in the middle of it, like right now, that's not really much you could take from that, because Carolina fans were high as a kite after Louisville. And then they all want to fire Roy after Marquette. They want to dump on the players. You go to and fortunately, our message board isn't Crazyville.
Yeah,
but you go to some places out there where a lot of Carolina fans are, and you're like, what are these people looking at? They've got to understand. And the people watching this video and I'm not making excuses here. I've been doing this 25 years. I've seen old teams, I've seen young teams, and I've seen, kind of middle of the way teams in different programs. I haven't just covered North Carolina. I've covered the whole ACC for a long time. And I can tell you that very few very, very young teams don't have this issue. And maybe Duke a couple of years ago, I didn't cover them. The Zion team, they're just so freakishly talented that they were kind of able to avoid that. This team's not freakishly talented. They're very talented. And if they stay together, they'll be a really impressive college basketball team next year, and perhaps whoever else is left in 2 years, especially when you look at who they're bringing in and may well end up bringing in.
Yeah.
But they're not freakishly good freshmen to be able to override that. So the inconsistency gets them a lot. And it's not just the freshmen. Look at Armando Bacot. The last 2 games, 9 points, 9 rebounds. Today, 18 points, 15 rebounds. How do you explain that? I mean, he was the best player on the team for a while.
Yeah.
There was actually a point in the season when, if you ask the question, who's the team MVP right now?
It was Bacot,
It was Bacot for a while. Now, I don't know who the answer is. It's whoever played best in their most recent game. Because
Mhm.
Walker Kessler was the flavor of the day over the weekend, and he played 11 minutes tonight. People probably going to say, why didn't he play that much? Well, he just didn't. That was not where his game is right now. That 2-2-3 zone just wasn't for him. Maybe
Nah,
a
it
year
wasn't for
from
him.
now, he'll be more suited to be able to handle that. It was more Armando down low and Garrison up high. Problem is
Mhm.
they abandoned that a lot and didn't allow it to work enough, and that led to all the other problems that they had.
Yeah, the roller coaster
So,
continues for the Tar Heels.
yeah, and you know what? They'll probably play really well against Duke.
Yeah, you're
And
probably right.
and they'll end up playing Wednesday in the ACC tournament, and kind of a new restart maybe will change this course a little bit. Maybe they'll play really well Wednesday and get beat on Thursday. They'll go to the NCAA tournament, play really well in the first round, get beat in the second round, shoot 32%. That's kind of who this team is.
That's exactly
And I
who
would
they
be
are.
surprised at this point if they're anything other than that the rest of the way.
Yeah, exactly, AJ. Like I said, the roller coaster continues for the Tar Heels this year. Losing tonight at Syracuse 72-70. AJ, I know you're counting down the days till you can return to the Carrier Dome next season. I know you're not going to be able to
They
sleep.
renovated. Look.
That's a good point.
Anybody who's ever been to the Carrier Dome before renovation, well, no one's been there this year. They know that you would open the door and it was like you were just being blown either out of the arena or into the arena.
I've heard that from you. Yeah,
because they pumped up the ceiling there, but they renovated it, and apparently it's a lot different now. I was looking forward to seeing a renovated Carrier Dome because the old Carrier Dome. Remember last year I sent you guys those photographs of the goalpost.
Oh
hallway out between you go by the football locker rooms, and actually the press room, the media room in pre-pandemic time is the visiting football locker room.
Oh God,
and trust me, it doesn't smell very good. But the goalposts were like in 14 pieces on a wall hanging in a net in the bowels of the arena. And I was sending you guys those photos.
I remember that.
When it's full, when there's people in there, you got a Carolina in the building, it's a great place for a game. It really is. And they know their basketball and they're passionate, and it's a shame that that game tonight and all their games didn't have fans. It's a shame everywhere pretty much. So I'll get back there next year or the year after and get to experience the real Syracuse environment again.
Exactly, man. I'm sure it'll be snowing when you get up there too. I know how that usually works for you. But
they can schedule a game in July and it'll be like 47 and windy. And cloudy.
If you're going up there, definitely the weather will not be looking out for you. But but that's gonna do it for us tonight. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks.